Walmart's Black and Unlimited platform is making it easier than ever to support Black-owned brands. When you go to walmart.com/Black and Unlimited, you'll not only get to shop products from Black-owned brands, but also learn about founders like Janelle Stevens of Camille Rose, which specializes in products for naturally curly hair. And there are many more awesome products that you have yet to discover. It's all easy to find with Walmart's Black and Unlimited platform. Join in on celebrating Black brands today and every day at Walmart. We are Black and Unlimited. Visit walmart.com/Black and Unlimited to discover more. That's walmart.com/Black and Unlimited.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the Bundesliga podcast. This is the preview show brought to you in association with Get German Football News. I'm Manu he's Stefan Bienkowski, and Stefan, I made sure to get German football news in there right away because sometimes we neglect it and overlook it. But how are you doing?
Yes, we're really, really bad at this whole professional podcasting business, aren't we? We often forget all sorts of things. We forget sponsors, we forget advertisements, we forget. Sometimes we don't even do the preview or the introduction to the show properly, as our listeners will know. But yes, besides all that, I'm doing very, very well. Looking forward to some crazy bonkers football this weekend, as if German football wasn't already crazy enough. There's all sorts of stories that seem to just be erupting around us. It kind of just feels like that point in the season where everyone's just kind of losing their head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a ton going on, and it's a bit of a mixed match day this week, Stefan. So lots to discuss. No obvious big games either, although I think there is a few that we do need to highlight. So yeah, we should probably get stuck into it after this break. So after we mention our sponsor, because we didn't forget. This episode of the Gegenpressing podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your college basketball betting this season. Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at BetOnline. You'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchups, and game trends at BetOnline. Updated odds for everything from live games, the conference championship, right through the Final Four and championship game. BetOnline is your college basketball headquarters this season. Head to the website today or use the mobile device to sign up and receive 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use your promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, BELIEVE, to receive your bonus. betonline.ag, where the game starts. All right, so the match day kicks off with Schalke against Hertha. That's actually my match of the week right away, Stefan. I know I picked a Friday fixture. I can't believe I did it. I'm only giving some of our listeners and readers 12 hours to digest all of this because this comes out on Friday morning, North American time, right? So, but here I am. I'm a cruel person by making everyone read through this as quickly as possible. There's a few obvious reasons why I picked this. It's a huge fixture in the relegation battle, right? This is 17th against 18th. I think the loser of this game can probably start planning for the second division. Obviously, still early. We still will have 6 matches left, but the gap starts to increase significantly if you don't get anything from this game. So that already makes it quite a big fixture. For Hertha fans, this is a derby or a rivalry, Stefan. And it is one of the weirdest rivalries in German football because Hertha fans hate Schalke. They hate them so much that they don't even mention the city name Gelsenkirchen. You reverse the whole thing, though. Schalke probably doesn't even know Hertha exists or their fans. Just one of the funniest stories in German football.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe just explain why Hertha fans hate Schalke so much?
So I did some research on this, and they don't actually know. It goes back to several fixtures and something in the 70s and 80s, and then it was just passed on. And there's actually a great Elf Freunde article on this in German, where they interview a bunch of Hertha fans, and they all point out that they hate Schalke and that they don't mention the name Gelsenkirchen. And then they, in the same article, went to Gelsenkirchen, where Schalke are based in, and they asked people about why they hate Hertha, and they were, what? We don't hate Hertha. We don't even know any of their fans. We've never even spoken to a Hertha fan. I don't even know any Hertha fans. We have zero rivalry with them. So it's really bizarre. It's one of the most bizarre stories, fan rivalries in the world. So Hertha fans are going to probably unfold all sorts of things and try to make this as much as a rivalry as possible, while Schalke fans will just be hoping for 3 points.
Well, you can understand why Schalke aren't that. You can understand why Schalke aren't that interested about a club in Berlin, because they're one half of one of the biggest derbies in Germany in German football. I mean, a few weeks ago I was at the Bayern Dortmund game, and I was on a train full of Dortmund fans, and rather than sing about Bayern, because international audiences would probably think Dortmund have some sort of rivalry with Bayern because they're the kind of perceived two big clubs, but just about every chant that Dortmund fans sing is about how much they hate Schalke, which as it should be because they're the historic rivals. But you can then flip that around and say, Schalke could walk through the Berlin capital and every song they sing will probably be about Dortmund. They don't care about Hertha.
Yeah, I mean, it's often the case with that, right? Like, that's a perceived rivalry as well. Bayern fans still sing songs about 1860, even though they're 2 divisions away. And like that song, Münchens wahre Liebe, is actually a response to a commercial slogan 1860 brought out, which came out in the early 2000s and called 1860 Münchens echte Liebe, right? So I think, there's always these perceived rivalries. And this is maybe one where Hertha tried to build one artificially. And it seems to have at least worked one-sided. But Stefan, this is a big game in terms of the relegation battle. And I actually went for a 2-1 Hertha win here. I think unfortunately for Schalke, and I want them to stay in the league. Don't get me wrong. So if they prove me wrong, I'd be more than happy, because they are a big club. They are one of Germany's 3 biggest clubs, in fact. And I want them to do well, because when they do well, the Bundesliga is a better place. But Hertha just seem to be on the ascendancy at the moment. They have the better run in. Picked up a couple points, looked a little bit better. I don't know. My head just says that Hertha will walk away with 3 points here.
Yeah, I think this is actually going to be a very tight game. Hertha have shown in recent weeks that they have the capacity to win games. Schalke obviously had that kind of run of undefeated games. I feel like I was maybe a little harsh on them in the main show when I kind of reflected back on the game, because even though I thought Schalke were pretty poor, they were also quite unfortunate. I forgot to mention the penalty that basically won the game for who's it? Not Bochum, sorry. I've actually completely just had an absolute Hoffenheim, of course, sorry. The penalty that kind of won the game for Hoffenheim, or that second goal, was, I mean, if anyone watched the game, I know what I'm talking about. The penalty was actually saved, but then Farman was deemed to have stepped off his line, which is just, I think I described it as draconian on Twitter, because the new rules for goalkeepers are insane. It got retaken, and then the goal, the second penalty goes in, and that just kind of completely deflated Schalke. So, they put up some fight, but I think on the whole is a pretty poor performance. But having said that, they're a little better at home, and I actually don't think Hertha are as good as Hoffenheim are. So I've gone for a very narrow 1-0 win for Schalke. I'm maybe still kind of leading with my heart here, I don't know. But I feel like Schalke still have enough to kind of maybe not get the better of Hoffenheim, but I think they should be able to get the better of Hertha. So yeah, 1-0.
So you say 1-0 for Schalke. I see 2-1 for Hertha. Stefan, we now know that it will probably end in a 1-1 draw. So if you're smart, that's what you bet on.
Listen, if you're smart, you bet on the predictions we don't make, because we have routinely got this wrong over the course of the season.
It is, in fairness, it's been pretty hard. This has been one of the hardest years to predict, especially the middle of the table is kind of like all over the place, which makes this a great competition to watch. And even at the top where we have a title race. Speaking of the title race, Stefan, Bayern, Hoffenheim, that's your match of the week. So I'm going to just let you take it away from here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a bit bad because there's probably more consequential games. Well, you'd think there were more consequential games happening this weekend. Bochum are going to Union. Werder Bremen have a tricky clash against Freiburg. Obviously Stuttgart versus Dortmund should be a tasty affair. But I feel with all the drama that's been going on around Bayern this week, obviously starting with that Man City defeat, what's since happened with Sadio Mane, who's now been fined and suspended for this game by the club because of the reported kind of incident between him and Leroy Sané. I just kind of feel like so much weight has been added to this match. And even though I do think Bayern will win the game, my prediction is actually a 3-2 victory. I think it's going to be quite tough because Hoffenheim have won their last 3 games. They have looked better in recent weeks. They look like a decent outfit now. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's going to be so many eyeballs on this game over and above, Bayern support. And that's kind of why I think it's going to make such an interesting match. Maybe it's not the fairest lineup. Maybe Bayern might go out and just do a very comprehensive, job on Hoffenheim. But if they don't, it's back to kind of all bets off, FC Hollywood, and the circus kind of rumbles on. So that's why I'm really intrigued to watch this game, just because I think it'll be really intriguing to see how Bayern react to everything that's happened this week.
Yeah, I'm super curious about all of this. The Mane suspension now, right? There's all sorts of rumors flying around on Twitter on what was said between the two players. I think it's best to just leave it at that. But I'm really curious to see about their response. And I think there needs to be a big response from Bayern Munich. Otherwise, we're all eating popcorn and watching the FC Hollywood sign light up, Stefan. But I actually went for a big Bayern Munich win here. A 3-0 over Hoffenheim. I just feel like this is the sort of match when they respond. But also with, of course, the caveat, if they don't, then our content is secure for the next few weeks, I tell you that. As one of our listeners accused us of, we would be sitting here with a cigar.
I know. Well, we'll see. We'll see if I'm smoking a cigar on Saturday evening or not.
You know what?
I hate cigars, so I probably won't.
I want to point this out. I'm actually really, really neutral. Pretty neutral when it comes to Bayern Munich. And over the years, even though I grew up as an 1860 fan, Bayern is still the city that represents Bayern is still in the city of my home city. So, I've actually more fondly of Bayern Munich than most people think. My issue is just I want to see a different winner. I think even lots of Bayern Munich fans do. So this is not, the bias here is not because I hate Bayern Munich because I grew up an 1860 fan. It's really just I want to see an exciting league. It's quite that simple. So here we are. Hopefully we'll get some excitement this weekend from this match, although I think we both predict that Bayern will win this one. Up next is Leipzig against Augsburg. Stefan, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I've kind of tried to stick up for Augsburg in recent weeks. They are the best team in Bavaria, as I like to point out.
See, that is blasphemy.
The only team that seems to be conducting themselves.
That should be not allowed to say.
Listen, they're the only team that seem to be conducting themselves with some degree of professionalism from Bavaria this week. I'll put it that way. Yeah, I don't know. That defeat to Cologne last weekend just kind of made me think it's taken the wind out of their sails. And I feel like Leipzig, contrastingly, maybe have kind of well, I guess they've now got the wind in their sails, for a lack of a better expression, after that win over Dortmund in the Pokal. They picked up a decent win against Hertha in last weekend. So I think this is going to be quite comprehensive. I've gone for a 3-1 win for Leipzig in this game. And I think Augsburg maybe begin to creep into that relegation race.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually went for the exact same result. I also went for a 3-1 Leipzig win here. And I think you're right. There's lots of stories, of course, currently going on. In fairness, talking about conducting themselves with professionalism, there's a lot of stuff going on between Augsburg and Ricardo Pepi. They're talking a lot about each other, but not with each other, it seems.
Yeah, it's very true.
All right, next up is Köln against Mainz. What's your thoughts here? And I know Mainz is always super tricky.
Yeah, Mainz are a club who continue to drive me up the wall, to be perfectly honest with you. They are my proverbial coupon busters, in the sense that just when I feel like they're turning things around, they kind of just decide that they're going to just, throw a spanner in the works and drop some points, as we kind of saw last weekend against Werder Bremen. And I don't know, it just felt they just could not hang on to that lead whatsoever against Bremen. Which felt to me like a pretty straightforward win, but there we go. And as such, I've gone for a 1-1 draw here against Cologne. I just kind of feel like, Cologne haven't been exactly great recently, but they picked up a decent win against Augsburg. They got a draw against Gladbach. And I know Mainz are actually really good on the road this season, so I probably shouldn't be over-egging the Cologne form, but I don't know, there's just something that makes me think Mainz might just drop some points in this game.
Yeah, Mainz have been really good lately, searching up the table. You're right about the Werder Bremen game, yet I still think there's maybe just enough in there for them to get a win here. So I went for also a narrow result, 2-1. But we'll see, I guess. Mainz is always a tricky one to predict. We, of course, have one listener and subscriber who's a huge Mainz fan and tells us to finally pay attention. And every time we do, they seem to drop points. So here we go. See what they do this weekend. Anyways, to the other team in the title race, Stefan, this is Stuttgart against Dortmund. This is a top-to-bottom clash. We got two of these top-to-bottom clashes, right? Bayern facing Hoffenheim, of course. Dortmund facing Stuttgart. Both these games implications at the top and at the bottom of the table. This could also have been a really good match of the week. Stuttgart looking better under Sebastian Hoeneß. I don't know how you feel about it. I just sense that Dortmund probably just have too much quality here and that they're going to win this game 3-1. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've gone for a very similar result, actually. I've gone for a 2-1 win for Dortmund. I completely agree with you. This could have very easily been a game of the week for us, because I do think Stuttgart have kind of turned a corner under the new head coach. They picked up a really impressive win against Bochum last weekend. Perhaps, the result of the weekend, to be perfectly honest with you. But, I think they still have a bit to go before they can kind of prove that they've kind of turned a corner. We can't really base too much on. I know they got a result in the Pokal, but I was against a team in the second division, so can't put too much weight behind that. Similarly, Bochum have kind of looked a little wobbly, but yeah, I think this is going to be a really tight game, and this is going to be a really good test for Dortmund, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought they actually looked very kind of professional. They seemed far more composed against Union Berlin than we'd seen against Bayern and Leipzig in the games before that. And I actually gave Dortmund a lot of credit for that, because, Union are one of the most formidable teams in the division. Yeah. They're only 5 points behind Dortmund in the league, and they're there for a reason. But Dortmund made them look like a pretty ordinary ordinary team on the day. So yeah, I think if Dortmund can play like they did against Union last week, then I think they shouldn't have too many problems against the Stuttgart side. But I always kind of still feel a bit wary when Dortmund go on the road. They're always capable of kind of dropping points. They don't have that kind of support behind them to kind of drive them on for 90 minutes. But yeah, so I think they're going to win, but I think it's going to be very tight. So that's why I've gone for a 2-1 win.
Walmart's Black and Unlimited platform is making it easier than ever to support Black-owned brands. When you go to walmart.com/Black and Unlimited, you'll not only get to shop products from Black-owned brands, but also learn about founders like Janelle Stevens of Camille Rose, which specializes in products for naturally curly hair. And there are many more awesome products that you have yet to discover. It's all easy to find with Walmart's Black and Unlimited platform. Join in on celebrating Black brands today and every day at Walmart. We are Black and Unlimited. Visit walmart.com/Black and Unlimited to discover more. That's walmart.com/Black and Unlimited.
Okay, well, we'll see. That gets us to the Saturday afternoon or evening fixture, rather, the Topspiel, which I don't think is going to be much of a Topspiel, Stefan. Frankfurt hosting Gladbach. I mean, these are two big names in German football, right? And both had we both covered both those teams quite a bit in the Transfer Roundup show this week as well, because they both announced that key players were going to leave. So you should probably check that out. But yeah, Frankfurt against Gladbach. These are two teams that are not in good form. Yes, Gladbach picked up a win last weekend, but still, I don't see much in this game. And I went for a very boring 1-1 draw, which probably means we're now going to get fireworks and a huge result. But what are your thoughts here?
Well, I can only back that claim because I've also gone for a 1-1 draw. I think it's really interesting the way that Frankfurt have just completely turned off. Near enough since they kind of dropped out of the Champions League. If you kind of look at their run of form, this is some really interesting stats for you maybe. Over the course of the last 10 match days rather, they're 12th in the league for points won. Fewer than Augsburg, Schalke, Werder Bremen, Gladbach. But even if you narrow it down to the last 5 match days, they're actually in the bottom 3. And they've only picked up 3 points from 5 games. And it just feels to me like we've seen this maybe not last season, but the season before. Actually, maybe it was last season, actually, because they obviously had that Europa League run. Yeah. They just give up. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's maybe something to do with Glasner's tactics and his exhaustion or something. But they've just completely turned off. And in contrast, Gladbach actually were somewhat impressive actually when they picked up a decent win over Wolfsburg last weekend. So I don't know. I feel like there's very little between these two teams right now, between a Frankfurt side who seem to just have very little to play for, which is a shame because they're not out of the running for, a Europa League spot next season. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is just going to be quite a drab game between two teams who've got very little left to play for. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw. Yeah,
my guess is that Frankfurt are probably going to focus on the DFB Pokal now, right? This happens to them every year. That they are going deep in one of the other competitions and they seem to just focus on that, which is of course a risky game now, because if you do not finish in the top 6, then you are going to be completely out of any of the big European competitions. Yes, there's the Conference League, I get it, but still, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see if maybe Frankfurt will prove us all wrong and win the DFB Pokal, and then we're all going to have a big party at the DFL Super Cup in August, Stefan, when they hosted against the German champion, parading around yet another trophy at the Alte Römer in Frankfurt. So we'll see. But it's an interesting phenomenon. I totally agree with you. Every year, this team just drops off. And whether it is maybe because it's such an emotional roller coaster that they take their players through, and maybe it's also the turnover, right? Because around this time of the season, they have to deal with their top players looking for other clubs, and I think that could also be emotionally draining. It is maybe maybe something that one of us has to dig into and present the numbers, and could be an interesting post. But let's see how this one plays out. That gets us into the Sunday fixtures already. And the first Sunday match is Werder Bremen against Freiburg. Look, at some point, Werder Bremen needs to win a game to plan for the next season. They're really probably only one win and a draw away from doing so. But God, it's been a snail's race for them. And Freiburg, Yes, they lose to Bayern Munich, narrowly lose to Bayern Munich, I have to add. That Rizzo-Doan ball goes in, we're probably going to be talking about an even bigger mess at the Sebener Straße. It didn't, but they're only 1 point behind Leipzig and only 4 points behind Union Berlin. And I actually think that Freiburg are not going to go away. I think that they're going to stick in that top 4 race, Stefan, and I went for a 2-0 win.
Yeah, I've also, again, got the exact same result as you, which, we make jokes about this, but sometimes these results do just kind of stand out to you. I think Freiburg kind of look like they've had a pretty tricky run of it recently, but they've also had some really, difficult fixtures. They came up against Mainz and Hertha, 2 teams, picked up 2 draws from those games. Teams who, Hertha are obviously fighting for their lives, and we just kind of talked about how Mainz can obviously turn it on one week to the next. Yeah. And then a very narrow draw to Bayern Munich last weekend. And the only way I can really see Werder Bremen maybe getting something from this game is if Freiburg kind of fall for that kind of classic Bundesliga curse of what happens when you beat Bayern Munich, which is the next 3 or 4 match days, you're just absolutely terrible. But, having said that, I do kind of feel like Freiburg are quite decent. We've kind of talked about a lot of this season in the sense that we kind of usually know what to do when they come up against teams that they should be beating. But more than anything else, I think Werder Bremen just kind of look a little lost at the moment. Yeah. They've only won 5 or 14 home games this season. Their actual run of form right now is pretty dreadful, to be honest. And there's talk of Füllkrug leaving the club week in, week out. We talked about in the transfer roundup show this week. And it just doesn't seem to be a good time for the club at the minute. So I think they'd have to be at their very best to beat Freiburg, which I really don't think is going to happen.
Yeah, there you go. Union Berlin against Bochum. Stefan, this is going to be fascinating because Bochum, I have to think back about the Union result against Schalke, where Union Berlin really struggled, right? It's almost like they are a side that is at its best when they play against someone who actually likes to play football. And, Bochum, I think, is actually not a good opponent for Union Berlin at all, which is why I went for a 1-1 draw here, which is, of course, has implications in that top 4 race, right? Because it would mean that the likes of Leipzig and Freiburg and maybe Leverkusen, who we're going to talk about in a moment, all going to get a step closer. But yeah, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I can completely see your point of view. I do think you're absolutely right in a sense. I think Union do play better when teams attack them. But having said that, Union's home form this season has still been really, really impressive. They've yet to lose a game at home in the league this season. Their record is actually identical to Bayern Munich's. So that goes some way to kind of showing just how remarkable they've been. Only Dortmund have a better home form, actually. And Bochum have the second worst away form in the league. So I totally get what you're saying, and I think it'll be a tough game. But I've gone for a very narrow 2-1 win for Union Berlin just because I don't think you can look past the fact that one of these teams is at the top of the table and one's at the bottom. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do drop points, but I think everything points to them to winning this game.
Yeah, interesting. I'm glad that we have some results that are different. So that way we don't sound quite like an echo chamber. And again, we don't tell each other the results that we predict before the show. We have no idea. It just happens that we tend to agree. So we'll see how this one works out. Wolfsburg against Leverkusen. I'll let you go here first, Stefan, just so that people don't accuse us of telling each other the results.
I think this is probably one of the easiest results to predict this weekend, to be honest with you. Wolfsburg, despite kind of somehow dragging themselves into the top half of the table this season, have not been great at home. They've been extremely inconsistent. They haven't won any of the last 5 home games. Leverkusen have surprisingly been quite good on the road. They've got the 4th best record on the road this season, and they've just been tremendous recently. Over the course of the last 5 games, they picked up more points than any team. Over the course of the last 10 games, they're 4th, and I think we're finally beginning to see Leverkusen look like the team they should have been from the very start of the season, and that team are quite capable of beating teams like Wolfsburg comfortably, I think. So I've gone for a 2-0 win for Leverkusen. They're very comfortable.
I went for the same.
Very comfortable. I think you're just copying me because if you copy all my results, I'll never be able to catch up with you for the end of the season.
Oh man, there's a hockey show that I watch here with Elliot Friedman, who's a really, really big sports personality in Canada, Stefan. And he goes on a show when on Hockey Night, whenever they make a prediction, he goes with a different prediction just because he doesn't want to have the same prediction as the other panelists, even though he agrees with their predictions. So he's wrong all the time.
It's an easy thing to do. I've been doing that this entire season because you usually make your predictions first, and I've got the same thing written down. I'm like, well, I need to put something else for the sake of shaking things up. And then your result comes in at the weekend. I'm like, oh well, there we go.
We should just do that for a couple match days. Just go contrarian and see if that changes anything. But I always laugh at that because like whenever I listen to that podcast, he always says like, well, I went for the different thing because I just didn't. He also like goes notoriously. So if someone wins the Stanley Cup, he says like that team will not win the Stanley Cup because he's like, oh, they can't be the same winner, even though I think the same team will win it again. Anyways, this is a brief glimpse into a different culture. I don't think we should do that. I think we should just go with what we think is right, and even if it turns out to be wrong, or if it turns out to be the same result, I think we should still do our best to predict these matches. Anyhow, that wraps this up. Matchday 28, and that's pretty much out of the prediction of Matchday 28. As always, this brought to you in association with Get German Football News, and by our sponsor, Bet Online. Stefan, any final thoughts before we wrap this up and hand over this fantastic match day to our listeners?
No, just hope everyone enjoys it. And as always, everyone who subscribes to the show, thank you very much. And everyone who just listens to the show, sticks it on once or twice a week. As always, just thank you so much for your support. I think I say this every week, but we do genuinely mean it. We appreciate the listener numbers just as much as the subscriber numbers. You all do your little bits and parts to keep us going, and we do appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thanks as always to everyone who supports, whether you are a subscriber or not. If you're just listening to, that's, everything helps. We love what we're doing. We love this league, and this is great fun. So enjoy Matchday 28. I hope it provides more drama and excitement. So we'll be back soon with another show. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.
Kein Ende in Sicht.
Walmart's Black and Unlimited platform is making it easier than ever to support Black-owned brands. When you go to walmart.com/Black and Unlimited, you'll not only get to shop products from Black-owned brands, but also learn about founders like Janelle Stevens of Camille Rose, which specializes in products for naturally curly hair. And there are many more awesome products that you have yet to discover. It's all easy to find with Walmart's Black and Unlimited platform. Join in on celebrating Black brands today and every day at Walmart. We are Black and Unlimited. Visit walmart.com/Black and Unlimited to discover more. That's walmart.com/Black and Unlimited.
What's up, folks? Anthony Armstrong here, former NFL receiver and host of Believe in Commanders. And with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league specifically created for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. Now, if you need help making those selections, you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players, you can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Now, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on daily fantasy sports. You pick 2 or more players, choose more or less in whatever statistical category, and then you rack in the winnings up to 25x on your cash on your DFS picks. Make your way over to prizepicks.com/believe and use the code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for a first deposit match up to $100. You must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details. Pick more or pick less. It's that easy. Prize Picks.